In a world where everyone desires to be rich and famous, there's a special kind of person who doesn't dream of luxurious mansions or shiny trophies. Their ambition is far more modest, to simply touch lives through teaching. Daniel was such a person. He never craved the finer things in life. All he ever wanted was to teach. He found joy in the small, rustic school, a place where blackboards were cracked and chairs lay broken, where children sometimes came barefoot, their stomachs empty, but their eyes full of hope. Every day, Daniel noticed the same thing. Many children would miss classes because they had to help their families gather firewood. Some would drop out entirely, trading books for burdens far too heavy for their small shoulders. It broke his heart. One evening, as Daniel sat beneath a withering tree, he asked himself, "What can I do to give these children a chance?" He didn't have money, he didn't have influence, but he had something far more valuable: knowledge. And he believed that small acts, if done consistently, could create big change. The next day, Daniel brought a handful of tree seedlings to school. He told his students, "Today, we're not just planting trees. We're planting a promise that no child here should have to choose between studying and surviving." The children giggled at first, but soon their hands were in the soil, planting beside him. Weeks turned into months, months into years. Daniel and his students planted trees every season around homes, schools, and farmlands. It wasn't easy. Sometimes the seedlings died, sometimes they were mocked by other villagers, and sometimes it seemed like their efforts were too small to make a difference. But Daniel kept going, believing that, like a tree, the impact of their actions would grow slowly but steadily. Years passed, and the small village began to change. The families who had planted trees together now had firewood to cook meals, shade to rest under, and even fruits to eat. The children no longer missed school because they were busy gathering firewood. They were too busy learning and playing. The forest they had planted was becoming a lifeline for the village. One day, after 20 years, a visitor came to the village. He was a scientist researching reforestation projects. He walked through the lush forest surrounding the village, amazed by what he saw. He met Daniel and asked him about the forest. When Daniel told him about how he and his students had planted it, the scientist was inspired. He took Daniel on a tour of similar projects he was working on in other parts of the country. As they walked among the trees, the scientist turned to Daniel and said, "You know, your work has inspired me. I'm going to write an article about you and this village." Daniel smiled, but shook his head. "No, you must tell the story of these children," he said, pointing to the villagers walking through the forest, their faces filled with hope. "Their story is more important than mine." The scientist did as Daniel suggested. Soon, the village received letters from all over the country, inviting the children to visit universities, government offices, even the president's house. The children, along with Daniel, went on these trips, sharing their story and the lessons they had learned. Through it all, Daniel never became rich. He continued to live modestly, spending his days teaching and planting trees. But his students, they grew up to become doctors, engineers, teachers themselves, all carrying the lesson he once gave them. There are many paths to greatness, but sometimes the greatest path is the simplest. A teacher who loved his students, a group of kids with big dreams, and a forest that bound them together. That's all it took to change the future. So what's the moral of the story? Well, some say it's about planting trees. Others say it's about the power of education. But Daniel believed it was about something else, about the potential for good that exists in all of us. We just need a little nudge in the right direction.